back on Mastering Counseling today, and we're so glad for everyone who's joined us. Especially, we are very privileged today to have Theresa Soltzberg with us. Welcome, Theresa.
Hi, thank you, Becky. It's so great to be here.
We look forward to talking to you. And Theresa has a whole lot going on and some areas that we haven't gotten to explore on here in a long time. She is a holistic and expressive arts therapist and the owner of Theresa Soltzberg Healing Art and Taproot Therapy out in California. And after doing that as well, she's starting to work with other therapists on Expressive Parts Work Healing Circle, which she wants to incorporate a lot of internal family systems just to help other therapists share and grow in this area. So I hope that I covered all of the main bases. Was that a good starting point, Theresa?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have a lot to talk about in the work that you're doing, so let's get right into it.
Yeah,
Why don't
sounds
we
good.
first just talk about connection to art and your passion for that and how that became such a moving part of your life that you pulled it into therapy?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So I've loved art since I was really young. I mean, I remember coloring, like asking for the new box of crayons all the time. And I studied it off and on through school. I minored in it. I didn't major in it. I think I was kind of intimidated by the academic aspect of pursuing an art career full on. I was actually an English major, and then later, I changed careers later in life. I ended up going into learning and development and had a corporate career for a long time. Since I'm in Northern California, I'm near Silicon Valley. So I did organization development, learning and development. So training basically and leadership development, that kind of thing we say I drove over the hill to the Silicon Valley companies and did that for, a good 20 some years.
Oh,
And
wow.
then ended up in becoming a therapist, in my later life, and then became an LMFT. So interestingly, when, I kind of like, kept taking classes and things like that, but then sort of let art go, which is a lot of people's stories, sadly, that we let the creative part, go to
Yeah.
having to do, especially work a lot of hours a lot of people can relate to when we're in the
Yeah.
corporate world, right? And missed it. I missed a lot of things about having to put so much time into my work. And then when COVID hit, I was like, I have some time. I wanted to really take an online class.
Mm.
And then I did a holistic program at JFK University, and we were doing, we had art therapy as one of the elements of that program too. So it brought me back to my creative kind of side of things. And it was an art journaling class, the course that I did. So I just really started to get back into it, and it reignited that love of art.
Yeah.
So I really, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So you became marriage and family therapist and then started to weave the art back in, you would say.
Yes. And I really think it helped, like I said, having, not just the couple of classes I took at JFK with that element, but the instructors there would bring in, and especially the collage work, interestingly, we would have that element. Even in, I remember ethics and law class, she's like, let's make a collage about how we feel about doing
Mhm.
ethics and law,
Yeah.
and we would always have those kinds of projects to have that side of things, to bring that in. And so I just sort of had that part of me awakened. And then I ended up later on, and I kept pursuing those courses, especially the art journaling courses, on my own, and developing
Okay.
that, and really pursuing. I never really had found the art I wanted to do, and I love
Mm.
the art journaling piece. And there was an art therapist that I kept pursuing that piece of what I love doing. So I was finding I found expressive arts with kind of those two threads were happening.
Okay.
And then I ended up doing at the Northwest Creative Expressive Arts Institute. I ended up doing a program after I graduated in it's their professional training program, and it's to pursue expressive arts
Okay.
training. So I did a
Yeah.
9-month program, and then it kind of wove together. Whereas like I really want to offer this
Yeah.
as part of what I offer.
Yeah, that's such a cool journey. And as I'm listening to you talk, we talk very often on here about people beginning their roles in as counselors and therapists and then finding the group or the type of therapy that they want to niche down and use. And then
Yes.
you are going almost a step further because you finally found in art journaling the part of art that really felt you could express yourself the
Yeah.
most. So, yeah, that's
Yes.
such a cool story. When one thing I would love to know about is with the art therapy, because sometimes we like to talk about the spaces counselors or therapists have in their offices or even up online, or people
Mhm.
have certain forms they use. What would you say would be a little different with you specifically doing art therapy as far as supplies and things that you maybe people need when they work with you to get the full experience?
You know what's interesting is so I did my training right on that cusp when COVID hit. So I had some in-person classes set up where I was doing my practicum. We had this big space and we could do, I had like 12 people signed up. And then literally after class two, COVID hit and everything had to go online.
Yeah.
So I had to adapt really quickly and the art journaling, to become a mentor and then even the whole program at Northwest was it had to be all online. So
Mhm.
I'm all online now. I'm a fully online therapist and all of my courses are online too, all my art journaling courses, as well
Mhm.
as the training I received. So because the person that I learned from is in another country. So everything
Wow.
I do is online now. So
Okay.
all of my, all of the I do art therapy groups. Now I have a couple that I'm doing, and then the group that I'm offering is actually for other therapists. And I
Mhm.
include internal family systems, as you mentioned as well. And I did that training as I
Okay.
was in school. I'm level 2 trained. So all the paperwork, everything I send, virtually. I do the documentation as we would for a regular group. We ask people to go ahead and get their own supplies and they're virtual. We're on Zoom and, what we do, and it's expressive art, which is
Okay.
a little bit different than art therapy, and we call it multimodal in that we do writing, we do
Mhm.
guided visualization. We look at it as multisensory in that there's layers, and people don't have to have any art background. They don't have to have any, it's not about the result. It's about making marks. It's
Mhm.
about expressing themselves. You could do that with very little supplies. We don't want people to feel like they have to go spend a ton on going out and buying a ton of things. We don't want it to
Yeah.
be prohibitive with not having, funds to go do that.
Right.
So we could work with someone who has just a simple, set of even like kids' watercolors or a set of pencils. I have a client who uses crayons and a pen, and she's
Yeah.
perfectly happy. And then a lot of collage work, so a couple of magazines,
Oh,
and
okay.
people can
Interesting.
express a lot. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of it's based on collage work.
Okay.
And then we do writing, we do the guided visualization, do some writing, do some images over that, and then they make marks to connect all that and bring a sense of who they are to that work. And then
Okay.
when you add the parts work in there, the imagery is really representing the expression of that personal, what parts are coming up, and we're learning the parts work as we do that and we express. So it's really, really deep and amazing work, and it can be
Mhm.
with little supplies.
Yeah.
So yeah, and really, so that really connects with any group we would run or any, or if it's a one-on-one engagement that they would fill out the same, privacy or group contract, but then they're providing their own supplies and the
Okay.
private space and all that. So
Yeah.
to really be connecting virtually. That's the way that I do it. Yeah. In person, it would be different where I might be bringing the supplies and providing that and charging an extra fee. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's, just like we have unique ways of helping all our clients. They have their own unique needs of as far as the supplies and how specific, simple, or whatever it has to be. So
Yeah,
thank you for
exactly.
explaining that.
Yeah.
Let's
Sure.
just kind of understand a little bit better because you have so many different things going on, how your week looks and you're definitely running some expressive art groups, and
Mhm.
then you're starting this other program that is, I think I understand correctly, more in therapist learning together.
Yes.
Um, and then I feel like you are doing some one-on work art therapy with some clients. So just
Mhm.
clarify for us all of those paths and how they're all
Mhm.
woven together or separate.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I actually have my one-on-one clients who I see like any other, practice, and they're IFS clients, majority.
Okay.
Some of them choose to do some of the art therapy work with me, and they do a little bit in session, and they work on their own in between. So it's almost like I have just kind of some different threads going on. I have a
Mhm.
couple of art therapy groups that I run, and I do those a couple times a week. I actually do those every other week. So I see those two groups every other week. And then the this new program, it's a community actually, and we're just launching it, and it's through a platform called Kajabi. There's different platforms like this. You may have heard of them. One's called Thinkific. There's different ones that you can use. So I've been working with a marketing partner for a couple of years now. She's been working with
Okay.
me just to kind of get more comfortable, because maybe some other therapists can kind of relate. It's not really my forte, to really do
Mhm.
that back end piece.
For sure.
And she's helped me launch that. And so she
Okay.
helped me with like the advertising, getting the word out there and all that. And
Mm.
so it's literally a community platform online, and then I'll do like a course within that, and then they'll pay a monthly fee to be in that community. And then I'll be there's kind of some threads to it of like learning the basics of IFS, and then the expressive arts piece along with that, week
Okay.
by week. And then I'll have some Q&A in there, and then even some challenges to do some. I find what's really powerful is having some ongoing consistency with like ongoing movement and meditation
Mhm.
practices and things like that, because as a community, right, like to be able to really hold each other accountable, almost like have accountability partners and things like that.
Mhm.
And then to be able to share what we're creating in our art journal and the spreads we're creating together, and learn how to give that feedback specifically with expressive creation, that
Mhm.
we don't like judge it either good or bad. Like, oh, it's so automatic to be like, oh, that's great. But you know what I mean? That can shut down
Mhm.
expression. So
Yeah.
things like that we learn, that, and how to support each other and ask those kind of open-ended questions of like, oh,
Yeah.
what did that color evoke in you? Things like that.
Right.
So just to share as a community and support each other.
Yeah. It's like little children and their art when you have no idea what's happening and you're like, "Oh, tell us about that," instead of, "Oh, that's so amazing," and it's like a line
Yeah,
on a paper, so, um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, a lot of therapy happens obviously in a session, and then there's work to be done outside of it.
Mhm.
One thing I'm thinking that might vary a little bit is that there could be more quiet times during the therapy where you maybe put out a thought or idea, and then people, instead of speaking, are drawing or collaging. Am I accurate in asking that?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. And
Okay.
so in a group situation, so I the sessions are definitely longer. The therapy groups I run are 2 hours,
Mm.
so that I can allow time for them to be able to work. And I actually have an overhead camera. It's actually a document camera, so that they
Oh,
can see, yeah, they can see what I'm doing on my desktop, on
yeah.
my desk.
Much like
Um,
elementary school or all school.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it's funny, I was getting all complicated with how to do it, and then one of the people that I learned with, she's like, "Oh, just get one of the little, it's just a document camera." Like, "Oh, it's easier than I thought."
Oh,
But yeah, and it's important because they can just see what you're doing, and, be able to look as you're working. And I was really worried about that when I first started, exactly what you're saying of like, "Oh, I don't want that downtime," but it can be really welcome, and especially if you have the longer session. They're really, and again, with the expressive arts, where they're doing some writing and you've done that sort of guided meditation, they're going inside and really focusing on a certain part. They've done some parts work that they can really focus in and do these different pieces of it. They're really connected to this work, and that they're so engaged in it. They're not really, I think, perceiving that as dead time in any way. They're just
for sure.
and then really definitely including time that they can connect and share. And then I also include some kind of way for them to be able to continue to connect with each other, as I mentioned, some kind of community.
Okay.
Yeah, for them to keep sharing.
Yeah. Well, that is good to note too, the length of time of the sessions. And I'm sure it goes by fast for a lot of people when they're thinking and doing and then listening to others' ideas. Can you share like the scope? Obviously, these therapies could be used for any type of issues people may be dealing with, but for your practice and the work you're doing, is it a very broad scope, or is it more specific issues that you feel like you could help people with?
That's a really good question. My main focus for the clients I see is complex trauma.
Okay.
And so at JFK, they offered an extra year of trauma studies, a trauma certificate, and I had done that. So my clients are basically, that's the focus of my particular clients. And then I had put a topic for just these particular groups because I just saw this need. So it's grief and loss, and I actually expanded that to, for complex trauma, there's an element of grief and loss to the trauma we've experienced when we're younger. Pete Walker, if you're familiar with his work, talks about the grief of complex trauma, of, what we didn't experience and that kind of thing. So that is the topic that I chose for those groups. I actually take insurance for the clients I see, and I really was aware also of insurance really being very wanting to see very specific topics. Not that we shouldn't have that for our clients anyway, right? But I wanted to really make sure that I was being very specific about what I was offering and the outcomes for my clients. So that's what I decided to offer. And I really do like to have that structure of the stages of grief, because we're working through the stages of grief and those emotions with the art journaling. If you're familiar with that kind of approach, there's prompts that we usually give that they can kind of work within instead of it being really open-ended. So, to give those prompts and what are we writing about, it really, I think, is really helpful. And to really, with the parts work too, like, what part is coming up and what expression is here, So I feel like that's the way that I really tend to work. It's interesting, when I started out with that, when COVID happened, I ended up just having a little, almost like mini group of 2 or 3 people online, and I wasn't really used to doing the work yet. I hadn't done my training yet.
Yeah.
Like, I just, I'll just work with these, and I thought, oh, I really need, I'll let it, my Gemini sun and moon rising, whatever. I'll make it really open. And they were like, can you give us like a prompt to work in? Like, they really wanted the structure. Yeah, really. It's like when you have a design challenge, it's easier to work within that, even if you.
Yeah, all interesting points for sure. I didn't mean to ask before, and you just mentioned now 2 or 3. How big did you allow the groups to be?
More of the therapy groups, which I consider, a little bit more intensive, because they're really that's a little bit different than the community I'm mentioning. I have about 6 in each. I think I would probably maybe go to maybe about 10. I think after about 8, I might extend the time a little bit, because to give them enough time to share. I think, if that makes sense, like at like the 2-hour mark, I think they might need a little extra time. I might go like 2.5 hours if I added more than 8, so they have a little bit more time to share. The community, when we actually meet, I'm not sure how many people we will have. I think that I would extend that a little bit more, because it's a little bit more of a learning environment.
Right.
They're learning more of the skills. Yeah, it's a little bit more like a course.
Okay.
So I'd say maybe 20-ish, and then they're going to break more into groups and do more of the.
And with the therapy groups, 6 to 10, is it like always a start time? Not time, that's the wrong thing. But if someone begins in September, is it that 8 together? Let's say there's 8 that are going to December, or are people coming in and out of the time each week? Or I think they meet every other week, you said. Do you know what I mean? Is it always the same 8 people, or are people coming in and out based on their needs?
I had started out with feeling like they could come in and out, but it's so interesting. This group has, especially one of them, has bonded so closely.
Mhm. Yeah.
And especially with that topic, I feel like next time I do it, I would ask them to stay together and stay in the same group.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see the
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah.
Adding a new person after trust has been formed, it
Yeah.
doesn't always work. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was on the fence about that.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and it might depend on the topic you choose, if it, but I feel like because of this being about complex trauma and about loss, things are very, and I just feel like I've watched this group bond so well together. And
Mhm.
I also wasn't that sure about having that extra piece about hosting their work together. And they've just like come together and are just so enjoying, like they have humor and they're just, yeah. I feel like the art element, trauma work is so heavy, as we know it can be. And I feel like adding the expression in just add some lightness to it, right? Because we're allowing, and if you add the parts piece in, we're allowing this playful part of us in to be able to play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure for many of the clients, it's like a highlight of their every couple weeks, for sure. So even though they're dealing with horrific things possibly in their past, to share this time with others and then have those creative moments must be really amazing. So,
Well,
yeah.
they tell me too that they keep doing it in between, which is so cool.
Yeah.
They're like, I find
That's
myself
awesome.
doing this,
Yeah.
it's really nice.
Yeah. Part of their whole lifestyle, which is what we want. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Let's talk about the holistic practice of taproot therapy, which
Yeah.
I am actually not very familiar with at all. So I'd love to get a full explanation and understand how this is part of it as well.
Yes. So taproot therapy, what is really it's like sort of my original LMFT like foundation.
Okay.
And I kind of expanded from there into my more like healing arts
Mhm.
practice. And I feel like I've kind of run with that a little bit more. Yeah. And so taproot therapy, it actually has a little bit more. So when I was a coach, I was originally a coach, and when I was in more of my corporate world and doing more of that work, I became a coach in 2011. So I have that background. And one of my passions is and was really helping people find their direction, because it took me a little bit of time to really find my stride. So I don't know if you had a chance to check out the material on that website at all, but it's really about, and a lot of my clients are in this situation too, where they're really searching for like,
Mhm.
what is my path? And, is it too late for me to find what I love to do? And it feels like I'm doing all these different things. When will it come together?
Yeah.
So that's really, that piece is really like, how can I figure that out? And kind of that background I have in helping people in the professional world who maybe are also having challenges with the workplace, which I actually had some of that as well. Some toxic workplace type of challenges. So I have that in my past too, and I really help people with that. I feel like I can give back in that way. I think that a lot of times the challenges we've been through, can serve us to really help people that have had those challenges. When I was going through that, it was hard for me to find therapists that had walked through the business world in a way that they knew the culture really well. That didn't give me advice like, oh, just tell your boss how you feel. You can't really do that in the corporate world in the same way, because feelings are kind of allergic to that language, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I have a lot to offer in that way. And
Right.
people do find me. People do find me. You know how people kind of find,
Yeah. Who they
for different
need.
reasons.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of that thread is there as well.
Yeah.
So
No, a lot of times we talk to therapists and counselors on here who have no experience in business because they started earlier in therapy and the business part has been a difficulty and they end up getting help from some of the people we share on here or outside marketing agencies
yeah.
and that type of thing. Let's talk a little bit about the business side of your practice and then the new circle that you're starting. What did you bring from the corporate world that was helpful for you? Or what would be some advice you would share with newer therapists who wouldn't have had the business background?
Yes. So I think that you noticed from what I was talking about before of just not being afraid to have different avenues and different, like almost like a variety of things that you do. I do have kind of the one thing that I focus on, but there's a variety of things that I do. And that's kind of the way my personality too. But I think that, that's okay. And you mentioned this earlier as well, that our field has such an opportunity to explore. And I got this advice when I was first kind of coming into my practicum at the site that I was at, that my supervisor who, was in charge of that site, he's like, this is your opportunity to explore the paths that you want to go down, the clients you want to work with, that you feel passionate about. And so I think that is a great opportunity to really, when I first came in, I was like, I had a hard time in the business world for a variety of reasons. I'm not competitive in that kind of like a cutthroat way is how it felt to me. And I let that go. But then I found out, hey, there's a really big need for this in a different way. And I brought it back in a way that I felt like I could offer it for people that needed that support in the way that I had needed it. So we can kind of like bring back in almost like the threads of the past things that we did in ways that are really beneficial. So, you know what I'm saying? So we can kind of just keep reinventing our own story in ways that can really help people as we grow and move forward.
Right.
I think it's interesting. Anytime we find ourselves saying like, oh, that was such a waste of time. Well, maybe not. Maybe there's a lot in there that we can keep reshaping.
Yes, absolutely. Always the trials sometimes we learn the most from for sure. So
Yeah.
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 In talking about your practice now, how much are you handling on the behind the scenes, or do you have people that are hired to handle billing or help with the insurance, scheduling, phone calls, and marketing?
Well, this might be an interesting way that I ended up doing this. I work for a few agencies and kind of purposefully I mentioned that I work for, that I have insurance covering my clients. And so currently I work for some agencies that do all the back end billing and all that. It's not really my forte.
Yeah.
So a couple of different agencies, such as Headway is the main one
Okay.
and Grow is another one. So I just decided I wanted kind of a foundation. Are you familiar with those?
I definitely heard them mention. I don't know a ton about it, but yeah, they have been
Okay.
talked about before. Yeah.
And it does remind me of, so I actually have, back in my earlier life, it feels like a different life. I have an MBA focused more on organization development, and it was all women. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I remember we would talk about like, I think it was a marketing paradigm of having like different products with different incomes. And that's what it kind of reminds me of sort of what I'm doing. It's like, I didn't want to spend a lot of my time investing in that part of what I'm doing. And especially as a new therapist, when I graduated it was right after the pandemic. I graduated in 2020.
Okay.
And so I don't know and some other people had said this to me, my profile on Psychology Today, and I wasn't really finding that I had a lot of private clients coming in right away. And maybe other, I think I knew I needed to invest a ton, probably a ton of energy and time in my private client side of things, which I want to do eventually. But I also had this expressive arts side of things too. and I'm working with a marketing person on that side and investing there. So I thought, oh, maybe I want just sort of some clients coming in right away. And so with places like Headway, what they do is they do all the back end. They send you clients. You can put your profile on Psychology Today and then list the insurance. They set you up with all the insurance. They do all the back end, and then you just fill out your notes, and then they just send you. And you're a 1099, and they send you your fee. So you make less than you would if you had, but then if you had the private pay just coming directly, but you get to fill your schedule.
Right.
Choose the times you want. It's actually really great for especially for new therapists.
Yeah. No, that's good to know about. Yeah. And then I love that you have your hands in so many different things to pull everything together.
Yes, exactly. And then I could grow this with the you know what I'm saying, like this community, and because that takes a lot of time and energy and marketing too. And I knew I kind of couldn't do both at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only have so many hours in the day. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is the beautiful art on your wall behind you. Are those special? They may literally only be decor, I don't know. Or do they have any type of meaning for your work? What would you say about those?
Thank you for asking. So during that time when I did some painting called soul painting with a wonderful artist called Elena Hennessy. And those are paintings I did during her course. Yeah.
Nice.
So thank you so much for asking.
I can definitely see 3. I don't know if there's a 4th and one other. Oh, there is 3. Okay. Yeah, those are really cool. I love them.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so fun to have that as a main part of your work and then to have it as your backdrop. Very cool.
Thank you. Yes. And my wonderful marketing partner, she's just like, put some of your work on the wall behind you so that when you're talking, you can have that there. So it is wonderful if you can work with somebody who can help you, especially if you want to kind of get yourself out there. Yeah, I couldn't have done what I'm doing without her, to be able to launch this community and everything that we're doing, everything that she's helped me be able to create. And then, I wanted to really hone my skills as an expressive therapist and IFS therapist, and that's just been wonderful to be able to do that. So it's been a great journey, like all the pieces just kind of coming together. So I just say, for people starting out too, just trust yourself and get yourself out there and just be in motion and do what you feel compelled and passionate about doing.
Yeah, no, all of that is great advice and wisdom. And I love that you have years of experience in kind of other facets. And then it all came together right in the beginning of the pandemic. So that had a whole piece of where you are today, too. So, yeah. Is there anything else that we didn't get to talk about that you feel like you would want our listeners to hear? Or do you feel like we covered everything?
I think so. I really appreciate all your wonderful questions, and if I think that's all that I can think of. Yeah.
Oh, it was a lot of great things. So yeah, we really appreciate you sharing your time with us because you have many things going on that you're running and the work that you're doing and longer sessions than others. So we appreciate being able to talk to you today, Theresa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Becky, for having me. It's been wonderful to meet you and be here. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful to meet you. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this program. Please look up Theresa and her work if you're interested, especially in art and expressive therapy. We will have future episodes, so share on social media, ask us more questions, leave reviews, and I will sign off for today.